Guys, I have a confession to make. I spend way too much time staring at screens, computer, phone, or TV. I'm always looking for something, even before I go to sleep. It turns out the blue light emitted from these devices are causing digital eye strain, and they're affecting me from sleeping. You may be in the same position. Blue light damages our eyes and can lead to blurred vision, headaches, and watery, dry eyes. For some, exposure to blue light can even be heightened for anxiety, depression, or responsible for low energy. BlueBlox was created to change this with high-quality lenses made from specialized optics laboratories in Australia. Their 40 frames come in prescription, non-prescription, and readers, so you'll find exactly what you need. Go to blueblox.com/Chael. That's BlueBlox, BlueBlox.com/Chael. Use the promo code Chael at checkout to get 20% off and free shipping worldwide, or just click the link below. So who does Paul fight? By the way, when we say who does Paul fight, we're all talking about Jake, right? Am I wrong about that? Like, are we still looking at Logan's fights as well? Because for some reason it feels like there's only one Paul boxing, and that's Jake. And I don't know that that's totally fair. I don't even know really where that comes from, being that Logan just fought Floyd. But for some reason, there's something about that career that doesn't feel the same as Jake. It doesn't feel like it's on the same trajectory. Doesn't feel like it's got the same goals. Doesn't feel like it's as authentic. Doesn't feel as though it's looking in the direction of appropriate opponents. I think that can change very quickly. I think we come back to the conversation of the Paul brothers as long as Logan goes and gets a real match lined up. I think that we redo that. But when we're talking about Paul, aren't we just talking about Jake? Isn't that the one that we're talking about? Because who is he going to fight? We know it's not going to be Tyron, right? You will remember that. He gets done with Tyron Woodley, and then they're going to do the rematch, and it's all predicated on this tattoo business, and then we find out the tattoo business didn't happen, and then you get some liar to come in and say, I got $25 million for you to fight Vitor. And that lie wasn't big enough, so another guy came right on the top of that and added 5 more million lies to it. Do you remember when that happened? Like, that was a little bit weird. Whatever the hierarchy of the Triller company is, we now at least know who's in front of who between those two unknown guys that both grabbed a microphone and proceeded to tell the same lie, except only 5 million lies differ, right? We at least know within the office who sits at the big table between those two. Why the second one thought he needed to give a crown bust to his coworker live and in front of the world, let those guys figure it out. But at any rate, all of a sudden you've got this Vitor talk. And then you've got this Anderson dialogue going on too. And it seemed as though maybe Anderson got a little bit more rub. Like, Anderson just got a win over a guy who pretended to be knocked out. That's true. But Vitor got a win over a guy who never should have been licensed. Now, these are only in hindsight. And I don't give either Anderson or Vitor a hard time. They did their job. I don't give them a hard time. I'm just sharing with you when the whole thing's said and done, and those are the directions that you start looking, it starts to add to what Anderson said, which is it's not going to be me against Vitor. It's going to be me and Vitor against the Pauls. I think that that's your storyline right there. Nobody picked up on it but me. I think that's where Vitor and Anderson should both team up. You figured out who's going to go after Jake, who's going to come after Logan. You guys figure that out, but it's us against them in the same night. I think that's interesting. Dana added in on that, even by accident, saying Anderson looks so good. I don't know who Paul will be fighting, but I promise you it won't be Anderson SIlva. I mean, all of a sudden things just got really interesting, right? And when we are talking about Paul, we are talking about Jake. That is the one who is showing us a hunger in pursuing a more purist standpoint of being an actual boxer. Logan can fix that. Logan's losing steam here quickly. He can fix that just by signing a contract. He doesn't have to do anything. He just has to go in with the right guy. Okay. Does anybody have a better idea than Anderson and Vitor versus those guys? And now Jake Paul's coming out talking about, I want to fight Masvidal. And that's always an interesting one, because there's nothing that can't be accomplished, right? If Jake is in fact with Showtime, just to remind you, Showtime is who co-promoted with Dana when he did Mayweather versus Conor. So as unlikely as it is still within the realm of possibility. Now, is that a direction you would want to go with Masvidal? I don't see why. That would be a huge fight, but whatever Masvidal does next, and if you have an exclusive contract and you have to co-promote anything, I don't think that you're going to let a guy go. It's also going to be tough, I think, for Paul to completely push back on what Dana has now laid out as a gauntlet, saying, why don't one of you fight Anderson? It's interesting. Either one of the Paul brothers versus Anderson is interesting. And I don't think that the Pauls would back down. I don't know that any of us thought that a year into this experiment that is entertainment boxing, that this would still have legs. I don't know that it's sustainable. But I predicted for you when this was coming out, it's going to have about a year to a year and a half. Here we are a year into it. I still think you've got a year to a year and a half. So this is something that we're going to have. This is something that we're going to have to put up with. I think that Logan needs to be very calculated with his next match. Very calculated. Any steam that's Logan's lost, the Paul brothers, and they're all looking over here at Jake, and this is where the community and the actual sport is looking to. They're looking specifically at Jake. I think Logan can fix all of that. Just put the right name on a contract. Going in there and fighting Floyd should have gotten Logan more credit than it did. I think it was starting to get him credit, and then you face these guys off, and it was a Volvo versus a Mack truck, and it just had the bad optics. Logan can fix that quickly, in my opinion. Just get the right opponent. Jake seems to be pretty open to fighting a lot of different people, and people are now trying to go after Jake. They asked Jake about the Triller offer, and Jake said that's ridiculous money. I used to work for those guys. They don't have that kind of money. I don't think that's Jake saying no. I interpret that differently, meaning Jake's pretty damn interested. If you got $25 million, you can likely get his services. He's just questioning that bank account to start with. Okay, one step at a time, as with anything. There's no show in the history of the world. Do you have the show and then you find the money, or do you find the money and then you find the show? I mean, this is the day-old question of production and entertainment. Let's see where all of that goes. I still am big on the idea. It's going to take some egos stepping down. It's going to take people teaming up just a little bit. I don't think that the Vitor and Anderson versus the Paul brothers is the worst marketing idea I've heard today.